There we go.
All right, perfect. Okay, so we are recording now. Man, that was a nice introduction that we just completely skipped over. But hopefully, hopefully people know us by now, and if they don't, we'll have to make the introduction eventually.
No, it's good. Maybe it's going to be a two-parter with the introduction being on Facebook.
Yeah, maybe.
Technology. But what you said, David, this is so true, and I think, and it's like it's both sides, because what I do, I always look at balance, right? And so you are in charge with your work, from the active part, right? The physical part. What I do is actually, it's like the mental, the more quiet part of it, that we need, the integration part, as I call it, is I help people to stay and remain calm. And this is so much more important nowadays. And when this whole thing started, I love acronyms. I was playing around with acronyms, and what does calm stand for me? And there's one definition that I like, that I came up with for me. It's courageous action for loving myself. Because a lot, and I just read this morning somewhere. I'm reading now Norman Vincent Peale's The Power of Positive Thinking. I think he's the granddaddy of all these positive thinking guys. And
Funny you mentioned that. Funny you mentioned that.
Yes, and in this book, he writes, that the secret to achieving peace and to have a peaceful mind is silence. That he recommends to have 15 minutes of silence every day. And that, especially this culture here is what he writes in his book too, that the American culture and society is not used to that. People are not used to this. And I see everything, and how people are trying to run away from being alone and from being silent. And because that's when the mind speaks up, and that's when the truth comes out, and it's very interesting. And so I've been, since this whole COVID thing started, I've been leading virtual Mindful Monday sessions for the Yonkers Library System, and we have on average, over 35 people. And it really helps people to cultivate their calm, to tap into their own inner power, and to become comfortable with silence. And I'm sneaking these things in so that they get used to it, and it's in a group environment on the screen, and it's really nice, so that people can really give themselves a break and reset their nervous systems.
I think that's a really good point, because I don't know how to explain it, or I don't know how to. I guess maybe it's cultural. That's definitely probably in the Eastern culture, they do emphasize, I don't know, like spiritual balance maybe, whereas in the Western culture, that I don't know. I guess I'm trying to find the words for it. There's a man. His name was the late Alan Watts. I don't know if you heard him before.
I know of his name.
Yes, Alan Watts has an incredible amount of material on YouTube, and he spoke very esoterically, very convoluted, but essentially what he tried to do was basically what you mentioned, blending Eastern philosophy with Western philosophy. And one of the big things with Eastern philosophy was this ability for us to stay calm in the storm. And there's also a book, it's a more modern book by a man named Ryan Holiday. You've heard of him?
Yes. The Obstacle is the Way?
Yes. His newest book is called Stillness Is the Key. And he talks about how leaders and thought leaders, philosophers, successful people, they had a penchant for knowing how to balance themselves when when life was tumultuous. So learning how to stay calm, learning how to stay tranquil and peaceful. So then if people are so afraid, or not, I wouldn't say afraid, if people are apprehensive about being alone with their thoughts, and nowadays a lot of people don't understand the difference between solitude and loneliness, right? So being alone and being lonely, I think, are two different things. Why do you think maybe I already answered my own question. Why do you think it is that people, especially in the Western culture, are apprehensive about being alone with their own thoughts, even for 15 minutes per day?
Well, 15 minutes can be a very long time, David.
Right. Just sitting there and staring at a wall and just being either lost in your own thoughts or trying to empty out your thoughts completely. Why do you think people are apprehensive about that idea?
Well, my theory is that people are afraid of themselves and they're afraid of their own truth.
Mm.
And they're afraid of facing their own, pardon the language, no shit. And now I understand, since I've become a Reiki practitioner, and I really devoted so much time and energy to my practice. One of my early teachers, said that Reiki is not for sissies.
Mm.
And now I understand why. Because it really is a practice that makes you look inwards. And inwards is a lot of stuff that is unfinished business that has been cast aside, stuffed down, hopefully, to be buried and disappear. But at some point, when you do this inner work and the process, and in order to restore balance, all that old stuff comes out again because it wants to be dealt with or processed. And that's because I think it's uncomfortable, to deal with painful emotions, and unfinished things, and to clean them up, and that's the thing. But as we learn also from Buddhism, from the Buddha, life is painful. We cannot escape pain. But what one of my mentors keeps saying is that, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional.
Mm.
And I think it's just about, what do we associate with, when we have a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear of a conversation that needs to happen, right? Then we make it worse instead of, just coming from a neutral space. Just imagine, an argument with the spouse, for example, can become very explosive and can become very uncomfortable, especially if it goes, topics that, two sides don't agree on, right? Or there's already the classical topic, maybe taxes, that the person, some people don't see eye to eye on that, or on what needs to be done,
Mm-hmm.
Somebody is very thorough and the other person is just like, why do I have to submit this? And just, I think it's the attitude that we bring to the table of when we're faced with these situations, and how we handle these, if it can become, more, it can stay a neutral ground, or if it come up with these emotions and we get triggered and then it becomes uncomfortable. And then rather than not dealing with it, we just stuff it down. And then when we think about it, life was before this so fast paced. There was no time for reflection, no time for thinking. And that was quite a very welcome distraction for a lot of people, and I'm just talking from my experience, and I'm just talking from what I've observed for my clients.
Mm. So in a way, for some people, this was a break from the distraction. For other people, it just added to the fire.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think. I would venture to say many people do have not only issues with communicating with themselves, but like you said, if you have a spouse or a partner and there's a particular issue that can turn very hostile with the incorrect choice of words, people also have problems with interpersonal communication, which is why I think there are interpersonal psychologists and therapists who their job is to bring people together and mediate conversations. Because I think intuitively, learning how to converse well with people is not something we're taught. I don't even know if you can say it is a learned skill. I think it's one of those things where there has to be some sort of knowledge acquisition, whether it's reading a book at, like, for example, Power of Positive Thinking, trying your best to internalize the lessons that you get in that book, and then figuring out which situations you can apply those to. Because I think a lot of people, especially, for example, with you and I are talking right now, and we're experts in our respective fields, and we help our other clients outside looking in. But even for someone like me, even if we're talking about a situation like this and we have a theoretical model and we're referring to a theoretical or hypothetical client and we're trying to help them, we know we probably have a better idea of how to guide them than we do to guide ourselves. And I'm probably speaking for a lot of people. Even in the fitness community, there are plenty of personal trainers who struggle with their own motivation when it comes to maintaining their health, because perhaps they're so focused on helping other people, they don't have the energy to help themselves. And we could probably safely bet that if we learn how to manage our own emotions within some sort of calmness and stillness and learn how to be comfortable with our own thoughts, we can probably be better at communicating. If for anything, we learn how to pause from the onslaught of emotions and the cues that we get from our environments, our physical environment and our social environments, which is why I think solidarity can be extremely helpful, because you have no choice but to be alone with your own thoughts. And even if you don't have the answers to whatever questions or problems are running around in your head, like, why does this person act this way? You can at least logically think through them if you're by yourself. You have this, I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does, but you can only think logically when you're not caught in that loop, in that loop of the what ifs and in that hamster wheel of the emotions, that come with it. And I think this is why I love mindfulness and meditation so much, because these practices, they help us to create space. So that when we notice, when we're getting off track, when we're getting out of alignment, when we notice, this is how I behave when I'm anxious, this is how I behave when I'm angry, then we can become the observer and just like, hold on, do I really want to continue this way, or what do I need to do in order to move myself out of this, and we who have practices like this and who practice these practices and teach these practices doesn't mean that we're immune to these moments. A few 2 weeks ago, I had a moment where I went down that spiral, that loop for 1 hour. I was like completely in that space, and then I realized, hold on, I'm a complete mad woman right now. It just doesn't make any sense. And then I called one of my teachers and she wasn't available, and I knew I needed to talk with someone, and I knew I needed to do something different. So I put on my sneakers and I took myself for a walk, and then I called my friend who lives also in the neighborhood, and then she said, can we talk? And she said, what are you doing? I'm going to walk. Can I go with you? And then, we put on our masks, and then we socially distanced, and then we walked for 2.5 hours. And that was the best medicine, and just because, I'm teaching mindfulness and then also meditation doesn't mean that I'm immune to these moments. On the contrary, but what it does is that, my fit only lasted for 1 hour instead of 1 day or longer, because I recognize it. And this is very consoling for me, because some of my teachers who have been, practicing their practices rigorously for 40 years, they also have moments where they're just like the complete human moments, where they get down those spirals. And then after half an hour, then they recognize, okay, I'm going to get myself out of it. And that's the difference, that we know how to get ourselves out of it and to ask for help and to turn to our tools. And that's the secret.
You make it sound so simple too. That is the secret. And I think for a lot of people, it's staring them right in the face. They're, at least, and I think you make a good point in that for someone like you and me, we're more vigilant about what's going on, because part of our job is to ensure that we're as healthy as possible mentally and physically for our clients. But I would say most people, even if that's staring them right in the face, they're belligerent to it, because they're stuck in this whirlwind of emotions. They know they want to get out of it, or at least they think they want to get out of it. But it's like, you think, if somebody tells you they want to do something, but they're not doing it, what does that mean? There's an incongruency between thought, right? Whether there's a knowledge gap or there's a knowledge gap or there's an intention gap. It's one of those, right? Like, do these people have the knowledge, like you and me, to, okay, walking is going to be the best therapy for me. I need to go talk this out. I'm going to go for 2 hours and I know I'm going to feel better afterwards. Or is it like, yeah, well, my life freaking sucks, and what's the point? What's the use? I might as like nothing's gonna help things like that. So it's kind of like the knowledge gap and the intention gap. And I think a lot of people fall under the intention gap. They don't have a lack of knowledge. You have a surplus of specialized knowledge. You know, if you can probably grade how severe certain things are. And when you see a client walk in the door, you can automatically pick up their energy, their ambiance, and you can say, you know what, you're probably going to need this, right? Whereas a lot of people would probably say, yeah, I feel like crap. I should go, maybe if I watch a trashy reality TV show, I'll feel better. Maybe if I knock back a glass of wine, I'll feel better. That for them, that's their therapy, right? But they're not addressing the root cause of the problem.
That's the thing. Again, it's just masking it, right? It's stuffing it more down. It's a temporary relief, right? You know, the temporary relief, you know, of the food that kicks in, especially, you know, the food that was not so good for us, the fatty food, the sugary food, right? You know all about that. Or the alcohol,
Yeah.
you know, that calms down the nerves and that helps you fall asleep, but that interferes with your REM sleep, right? And, you know, but we talk about this every time. We always come back to this, David. It's discipline. We always come back to that D word of discipline, and it's just, you know, it's a skill. This is all that it is. It's a muscle, you know, and our muscles in that way are more pronounced, and because we've been doing it, we are more used to it, and it's part of our repertoire. You know, it's like, okay, so what my cope is about, you know, having healthy coping mechanisms and skills, and the not so healthy coping skills and mechanisms, you know, and of course it's also about instant satisfaction and gratification, which is a cultural thing too, you know. You know, of course, you know, stuffing things down with food, you know, I'm gonna eat my pint of ice cream now. I'm a stress eater, so I know I love the crunchy stuff, you know, and I totally see the benefit from that too. But it's just, you know, it's like a band-aid. Yeah. But you know, the root cause, and that really requires that quiet time, that silence, that honesty, and just like, you know, that reflection time. That's a muscle that has atrophied for a lot of people.
Yep, the willpower muscle, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure this is the case for you as it is the case for me. When it comes to fitness, taking care of ourselves, like you said, you know, having healthy coping mechanisms, right? A healthy coping mechanism being, if you're stressed out, go for a walk, go for a run, go to the gym, lift some weights, relieve that stress, release anxiety. There's a plethora of research showing that exercise is an excellent medicine for anxiety and depression and stress. People know this. So then how do we get right? So I think the discipline is what helps people when they get to that crossroads of, should I do this or should I do this? Discipline will help them go towards the right road, the intention. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. How do we get people to get on this road a little bit more? How do we get people to align their desires with their intentions a little bit more? Whether it's, I don't want to do anything healthy for myself. Okay, you don't want to do anything healthy for yourself, then it will probably, and here's the thing, I think the net benefit, although the overall benefit might not be the best, the net benefit right then and there of aligning an unhealthy behavior with an unhealthy desire is probably going to be better than if you had some sort of incongruency, such as, I want to lose weight, but I'm going to stuff my face with Cheetos. I think it's much better to say, you know what? I'm going to set aside my weight loss goal for now, because right now in the moment, I just want to stuff my face with Cheetos and I'm going to be okay with it. I'm going to make space for myself and I'm going to accept my behaviors, and I'm going to accept responsibility for my behaviors and the consequences that come after that. Afterwards, when things have settled down, maybe I can recollect myself see if there's anything else that I want to change, and lay out a plan of what I'm going to do. And then I'll try it again. And I'm going to try it again and again and again. Right? Because
Yeah, and yet that's the thing, the repetition. But what I found from my work is first, you need to create an atmosphere of trust. It's not something that you can do by yourself. You need a partner. You need a support team. You need a support team of a person. You need a trainer or a coach, or a therapist, or someone you trust, someone is not going to judge you for whatever you bring to the table or to the session. Right? Somebody that offers you a neutral, safe environment where you can just, admit the shortcomings and the failures. And then, taking this, and somebody who takes you by the hand, at least that's in my case, and then just show people what to do in the tools, and then just like over and over and over again, and build that kind of relationship that when the anxiety super kicks in and stuff. For example, I have some of my anxiety clients. I tell them when it gets to me, I give them some tools, and I'm just like, text me, so that I can, but just, that they know, I can turn to Andrea, I can text her, and then we can she can walk me through this phase and help me get out of it quicker than just me stewing with this by myself and get sucked down into this whirlwind again. Yeah. And then again, it's the trust and repetition.
I think, and I agree. And I think a lot of people mistakenly believe reaching out to an expert or professional like you and me means that they're either weak or that they're not ready for it. I think that couldn't be further from the truth. I've had many conversations with people who says, oh, I need to get in shape before I see you as a personal trainer. Like, what? Isn't my job as a personal trainer to help you get in shape? Or somebody might come to you and be like, oh, I don't know if you've heard those types of justifications, like people aren't ready for Reiki. People aren't ready. Oh, yeah. People, I'm like, first of all, your mental and emotional and physical health are the foundation for your life, right? Like if there's anything you would want shortcuts to optimize your mental emotional health, to improve efficiency, right? Because of course there are so many things we can learn on our own. People can go on YouTube, learn how to work out on their own, learn how to do mindfulness on their own. But what we do is we condense the time. We shorten the learning curve, right? And like you said, when you work together with a competent and non-judgmental professional, there's that element of trust, which could increase buy-in for whatever practice you're trying to do. Like there are plenty of people who have hated fitness. They hated fitness. They might come to see me. We have a very good time. They see results. They trust me. They know I'm not judgmental. I keep them accountable, and I give them tough love, right? Like, dude, you ate French fries. You ate French fries. Okay, you're a human. You ate French fries. How come you ate those French fries? I wasn't feeling very well. So, all right, well, how come you weren't feeling very well? I had a really tough day at work. I was like, all right, well, understandable. I'm not going to go into any more personal detail about that. Did you want to eat the French fries? It's like, yeah, I wanted to eat the French fries. Like, okay, well, do you think the French fries will help you get closer to the goals that you have set out for yourself? No. It's like, all right, well, how important would you consider your goals important for you to achieve? Yes. All right. Do you see the disconnect that we have here? Yes. All right. When you come up to a situation like this again, what do you think you can do? Would you go for the French fries again? Or would you try to find another, or would you work together with me to come up with some suitable workaround so that you can still, maybe you won't feel as good as if you ate the French fries, but you'll place yourself in a position where you're not going to possibly regret the consequences of eating the French fries, right? So the short-term benefit of not having the French fries is going to be less, but the long-term benefit is going to be greater because you'll feel better about yourself. You'll have given.
Come again. Instant gratification. We want it now. I want what I want, and I want it now. And that's the culture we're living in.
And I think that is why, going back to your point about working with somebody, and we're not plugging ourselves in here, right? I mean, we are, but we're not. It doesn't even have to be a professional. It could just be, like you said, a non-judgmental friend who's not going to automatically jump to teaching mode. Oh, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. A non-judgmental friend who can help walk you through your situation, help you talk out your emotions and what's going through your mind, I think can help people trust themselves so that they don't fall victim to instant gratification as much in the future.
Absolutely. And but you know what we're missing, and it's what a lot of people don't realize, you know, we don't need fair weather friends and just people who, you know, like, you know, people who see us at our best, you know. We need people we trust, where we can be vulnerable with, that we feel safe with when we are at our weakest, when we are at our messiest, because when we're really honest, life is freaking messy. And especially right now, what's going on. And you know what? We cannot always keep our shit together. You know, we have to have the space, and we have to allow the space for these uncomfortable emotions to be expressed and to be felt. And this is something that is lacking in the society here, that I have observed, because I wasn't born and raised here, you know. So I have a different perspective. I come from Germany. I was born and raised in Germany, you know. And I think it's very interesting, because we always have, and it's always cherished, you know, when we make friends, we make really deep friends, have deep friendships, because we talk, you know, and we really take our time to get to know each other, and then we really have deep conversations, you know. When I moved here, it was all very superficial. Maybe it was also because it was when I was working in the city, and people just saw my job title when I was at the German government organization, at the consulate back then, and they just wanted to hit me up for a job, basically, or for some networking. But I was shocked when you arranged to meet people, and, you know, a coffee date was 15 minutes and dinner was 30 minutes. How on earth can you get to know someone in 15 or 30 minutes? How can you build a relationship?
I'm sure there's so many factors that go into this, right? I've worked with a lot of people, and you probably know this by now based on the nature of our conversations. I'm not just a personal trainer. A lot of my clients and I, we get involved in some deep conversations, whether it's about their personal life, how they're feeling, various, you know, their struggles. And a lot of my clients say, I don't have anyone to talk to, because the same way that my clients have problems, other people have problems of their own. And I think, to your point, a lot of, and I guess we're circling back to this. If you have two people who have problems, that doesn't necessarily mean they should be mutually exclusive. There can be where they can connect with each other based on their problems and help each other by, I don't know, talking about their problems together, rather than thinking, oh, I don't have time for this person's problems. I have my own problems to deal with. I don't, at least, you know, I get that sense from a lot of people, especially in New York, where everything is so fast paced, and you got to do this, you have to do that. And in business, there's this concept called your network is your net worth. So the more people you know, the more you're worth. And that kind of, like,
Oh, yeah, I lived in that world, and I'm so glad I'm out of that world, because
it's kind of like,
it was terrible.
right. So it's interesting times we're in right now, because you have people out there who are saying that when you can affect a lot of people at once, that's when you can find the purpose. That's when you can help the most amount of people. But your message gets diluted, I think, right? Because how can you truly impact somebody in 15 minutes, right? How can you, unless you're a fortune teller or a psychic, or you have such an immense grasp of neurolinguistic programming? I don't think that can happen. I think there needs to be some sort of, like, of your ability to be comfortable in your own skin and be comfortable with other people who are going to be non-judgmental and who are going to help you walk you through your problems.
Yes, you know, and what it all comes down to, David, is it's about connection. And that's something deep down, we all crave connection. But how can we connect with other people when we're so far removed from ourselves, when we're not connected with ourselves? And this is why I love, my lineage of Reiki so much, because what it does is actually eventually the practice brings us back to ourselves, so that we can be true to our way and our being, that we can get to know ourselves, and that we can be comfortable with ourselves. And when we are comfortable with ourselves, and then when we are calm and at peace with ourselves, it translates into our environment and into our relations with other people.
So would you say a lot of people nowadays don't really know who they are, who their core being is?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And I see, and this is the biggest cause of tension, that people don't know who they are, or they do know who they are, but because of keeping up, the appearances, or keeping up with the Joneses, they are working against themselves. And this is when all the stress and the friction comes in. And I'm the poster child for this, because for so many years, I worked against myself. I was doing a job that I was really good at, but it wasn't me. I was fitting in, and I was doing whatever was expected and needed me to do, but inside I was screaming. And I developed a chronically inflamed esophagus. It was miserable. The acid was burning me up from the inside. I was grinding my teeth so badly at night that some of them had to be broken. They had to be extracted just to keep up that outer surface, and that thing, that wasn't worth it for me. And I left that world 7 years ago in 2013, because there was no way to live life like this. And what I realized was I had been working against myself all the time. And then what I realized, now I'm working with myself. And that
Sounds
makes,
painful.
yes, and that makes that makes things so much better. And I don't need the external things to fill me anymore. I had really nice wardrobe, oh my god, hair and nails done on a regular basis, facials done on a regular basis. I don't need all these things anymore to make me feel better under the disguise of self-care, because women think that self-care is to go to the salon and to get their nails done. And I understand that. You know why? Because for those 15 minutes, 10-15 minutes, you cannot use your hands. They're drying. This is when they're still, right? But a lot of women figured out still with one hand to use their phones. So, but I think this is the value of why people are used, going to the salon, for manicures and pedicures as self-care. This is why we have so many salons. Look in our neighborhood, and why they're always crowded.
Yeah.
Why they were always crowded. And this definition of self-care, that I'm taking care of myself. But again, it looks pretty and it looks gratifying, but really, is it? But what you really need to address right now, the demons that you need to look at, are these really addressed? And yesterday I went to a workshop for financial health for women, because I really believe in that, and it's so important. Financial literacy for women is so important. And so I just was participating, and it was so interesting in how they were talking, how people were coping with the current situation, and they had to prioritize, and what they would cut on. And they say, I cut on self-care. I have to focus on my housing now. I'm on my food. I'm cutting on self-care. So I'm not gonna, get my hair done and my nails done. Well, right now you can get them done anyway. But self-care is also taking care of that. Your basic needs are met. And that also involves financials. Looking at the financials and knowing what the budget is and all these kind of things. And this is an aspect of self-care that people do not talk about.
Right. Money management. Right. So then, I think unlike you, people are continuing to bang their head against a wall, thinking that the wall's going to break before their head does. And this just goes back to, how do we get, man, like how do we get people to realize, like, there are people who literally are given death sentences by their doctors. If you don't change your life, you're going to die in 10 years, yet they still don't change. How do we get people And I think that this is the golden question, right? How do we get people to want to take care of themselves better? How do we get people to take care of themselves the same way they would take care of somebody else they loved, right? Because I think it's safe to say we are much harder on ourselves than somebody we cared about, than we care for. How do we get ourselves to care about ourselves the same way we would care about that other person?
We talked about it the last time. It comes down to, how much do I value myself? How high
Mhm.
am I on my priority list, and how much do I love myself?
What if somebody just does not value themselves that much?
Well, then there's so why is that?
Yeah.
There's storyline. It's about beliefs. It's about the mindset. It's like it's about the winning attitude, right? What you wrote, and yeah, there's is the person willing to go on that journey? Is the person willing to look that in the face to get freedom, or to stay in that trap? That's the question that only that person can answer for him or herself.
Right. And while realistically these two are not separable, if somebody was to, at least the two issues being separable, meaning maybe you're intricately and maybe you're intimately involved with somebody, and I have a lot of clients who are like this. They might be involved with somebody who doesn't support them, whether they're trying to sabotage their weight loss, whether they're like, whether my client wants to go work out and the person's like, oh, why are you going to go work out? Don't work out. Spend your time here with me, watch some Netflix or whatever. Or they get it, or they're not trying to get on the same wavelength as my client or whatever. And so they get into an argument, and the argument lasts until the middle of the night. My client doesn't sleep well. So now their productivity and energy levels drop the next day. I'm sure a lot of people are probably going through this.
Yeah.
Even though you can't separate realistically, you can't separate the two. At least when it comes to fitness, what I try to get my clients to do is, and this is a segue into what we're talking about. I know we're talking about it pretty late. We should have been talking about this in the beginning. It's my fault because I'm sure I digressed a lot. But my clients tend to be the ones who don't give themselves enough credit. They're way too hard on themselves. And maybe they're perfectionists. Maybe they want things to go the way, maybe they want to have control over their environments. But like you mentioned before, the external factors, there are plenty of things that we don't have control over. But at least one thing we do have control over is how we talk to ourselves. And one thing we can do for ourselves is to celebrate our little wins, right? There are so many little things that are going well in our lives that we take for granted because we're just so consumed with all the negative bull crap. So one thing I try to get my clients to do, and I've seen this work well time and time again, is when they do something as simple as, I don't know, their second set looks better than their first set. I'll make a huge freaking deal out of it. It's like, oh my God, that looked amazing. You made this little change. That was great. You look fantastic. Let's just keep that up. That's awesome. And I think this ties in, like, okay, if you can sound authentic about that, you're going to build trust. And if you build trust, the person's going to be more comfortable about talking to you. The person's going to be more comfortable coming in to see you. The person is going to be more comfortable with themselves. And if they're more comfortable with themselves, they're going to take care of themselves better.
Absolutely. And and the thing is about self-care is, I think we need to redefine the definition of self-care. And self-care is not just pampering ourselves and treating ourselves. Self-care is really of also looking at what is not working, what is out of balance, and what we can do to restore that balance. And it requires honesty, and that's just something that we just need to tap into again for ourselves, that we need to discover. And so that's why I think, this is why I love the mind-body connection and my practice again so much, because it's a spiritual issue. It's a spiritual disease. It's about, it's again the connection. It's about having faith. It's about having trust. It's about acceptance. It's about love. It's about surrender. All these big teachings, lessons that we all need to learn in life, that we don't get a curriculum in school for, and that depending on our families, they only teach us what they know and what they were taught. And when we are in the hamster wheel of just doing things a certain way, these things get just passed on. Mm. And things are just the way they are. Very, very interesting, and especially I think this whole COVID-19 thing, to wrap things up, is just really challenging us and asking us, how can we take better care of ourselves when we cannot go to the gym anymore, when it's not so easy to get the healthy food anymore, because we choose not to go grocery shopping as often anymore because we don't want to expose ourselves, right? When our routines have been disrupted, that have given us the structure to keep up, our self-care and our exercise and our routines, we don't move as much anymore because, we've been confined in our homes for 2 months now. Whole new different things of looking at what self-care means for the individual and what they define. Again, going back to the example of the women who cannot go to the salons anymore to get their nails done, who have to do their own nails. Do they do their own nails, or just do they leave them the way they are? It's a very, very interesting exploration, and I think it's an exploration that we as individuals have to be very honest with ourselves, and then just tune in and just figure out for ourselves what works for us and what doesn't work for us. And maybe we have to adjust and we have to readjust this one day at a time, because things are changing so quickly. Sometimes it's a moment-to-moment decision.
You're right. I agree. And just to wrap it up on my end, I did a big podcast. I haven't released it yet on motivation. It was actually requested of me by one of my clients who thought it would be appropriate for me to talk about motivation, specifically motivation, what it is and what it isn't, especially during times of stress and difficulty. And I spoke about our willingness and our ability to redefine ourselves. And I think that's what you're referring to, being able to readjust, because we're like, nobody expected this to happen. All of a sudden, overnight, gyms are closed, our whole routines are upended, people are working from home, everyone is doing everything from home. I mean, we're kind of coming over the hump now. States are reopening. The situation is looking a little bit different. But for a lot of people, the situation might not be any different than what they're currently experiencing right now. And that might require us to redefine ourselves. And maybe one way to redefine ourselves is to learn how to be more comfortable with who we are, to be more authentic with ourselves. And maybe one way to do that could be to not allow our environment and our past experiences to define who we are. We have to be able to chart our own course, to be our own trailblazer. And I know for a lot of people, this can be really scary. Absolutely. Because they'll have no idea where to start.
Yeah, and then we have to stay in our own lane.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I was trying to take notes throughout this whole conversation because I thought that we were talking about so many good things. I don't know if other people are going to think the same way, but I thought today's conversation was excellent.
Thank you. Good thing you have the recording to go back to.
I do, and I'm going to post this up on my YouTube. I'll send it over to you. We'll have to, if we need to, we'll do an introduction to this video, a separate video that introduces this video.
Okay. But I think we need to wrap this up for now.
Yeah. Yep. I gotta get to my kids, and yes, I gotta get something to eat. I need to perform some self-care on myself.
Exactly. That's good. That's important, especially now that you're home with your little kids. That's a different story. How do you manage taking care of yourself, of your clients, while also taking care of your 2 little ones? That is really a big challenge that a lot of women are facing now.
I don't know. I really don't know. I want to say that I have the answer to that question, but I don't know. I think there's a big part of gratitude Grateful that none of my family members are sick. And that's the most important thing. We're all healthy. And because we're healthy, I feel that I am, first of all, my kids are at an age, they're in July, they'll both be 3 and 2, respectively. They're at an age right now where they're aware of what's going on immediately around them. Like the golden age of instant gratification, right? They just want whatever is in front of them right now. And what's in front of them right now? Mom and dad. Mom, dad, toys, sleep, whatever, all the necessities, but mom and dad most importantly. The nanny's not here anymore. Mom and dad is interacting with them all the time. I mean, aside from when I'm doing appointments and doing this call, for the most part, we're at home, and I think they really enjoy that. On the flip side, they're not at an age where they have to be on a strict curriculum such as like education, like formal education. So I think in a way that's a blessing, because if they, like a lot of other people whose kids have to be homeschooled, or unlike other people whose kids have to be homeschooled, I don't have that pressure. I don't have that pressure to make sure that they're following a curriculum, they're being homeschooled, they have learning lessons that they need to do. So I don't have to worry about that when I'm with my clients. I don't. But so it's at least in that way, it's easier to manage mentally. I'm sure the situation will be so different if they were like, let's say 7, 8, or 9, or maybe. But I work with a couple of seniors in high school, and they're losing their minds because they don't know if college. They don't know most likely they're going to miss their first semester of college. They're not going to have a graduation. They're not going to be able to walk the stage. They're not going to go to prom. They don't have their senior trip. So it's tough for it. It's I guess everyone has their own struggles.
Oh, yes, they do. And then we have to acknowledge it, and like I said, our job is, to provide that safe space for, the people who choose to come to us and to ask for our help, to walk with them and help them achieve their goals, and be, and be there for them, and this is very important for me in my work, that I just don't drop my clients, so that they know, it's their choice if they want to stay in touch, and if they want to if they want to reach out.
So yeah. So if somebody does want help from you, how do they reach you?
I think the best way these days, would be to go to Facebook or Instagram. It's Thrive Reiki, or to my website, thrivereiki.com.
Gotcha. So Thrive Reiki, and you have a very nice profile picture, very professional. And they can either go to your website, reach out to you, or if they reach out to me, I'll make sure to pass their information along to you. And if somebody wants to reach me, David@strongbylee.com, same way. I'm not super active on Instagram, but Facebook I'm more active because I like the long form stuff. But people can go to my website, strongbylee.com, www.strongbylee.com.
I think we can be found.
Yeah, we can be found for sure. We're
That
active enough, I guess.
For now.
Yeah.
We resume the conversation again.
Okay, thank you. I hope this was worthwhile for you.
Thank you. Just have a good night, everyone. And how about you stop the recording now?
Yeah.